Good evening, guys. Sorry for the delay in getting back to this book, Philosophy, 100 Essential Thinkers. It's been a really crazy week and haven't really had the time I wanted to get around to reading through it, just along with some of the other books I'm working on and work and life's daily tasks that need to get done. So getting around to it now. So I'm going to do this tonight, and also another chapter from New Spring. Been working on Knife of Dreams by Robert Jordan, which is the 11th book in the Wheel of Time series. So haven't really gotten around to New Spring this week either yet. So excited to do that tonight with you guys as well. So I'm going to go ahead and light this candle just for a little bit of a cozy atmosphere. With it being winter and all, it's kind of nice to have a candle going. So let's go ahead and get into Xenophanes of Colophon. So Xenophanes is thought to have lived somewhere around 570 to 475 BC. Pretty similar timeline to Pythagoras. And his main contribution to philosophy, or kind of crowning thought, was kind of a challenge to the widely spread, or widely accepted, I guess, kind of blind, what's the word I'm looking for here? Blind acceptance of kind of the religion of the era, and just kind of the gods in general. And he kind of challenged that and looked at how culture and just general environment influences a person's beliefs. And so from that, a pretty famous statement that he has is that if horses could draw, they would draw their gods like horses. Kind of referring to man's description of God as having, man-like features as well. So, like many of the Presocratic philosophers, who we know of mainly through mention by later authors, exact dates for Xenophanes are uncertain. What is known is that Heraclitus mentions him as a contemporary and critic of Pythagoras, and we can thus date him as living roughly around the same time. Exiled by the Persian Wars in Ionia to southern Italy, Xenophanes wandered the polities of ancient Greece as a poet and freethinker. Following Thales, he criticized the Homerian concept of anthropomorphic gods. Homer's gods, Xenophanes complained, had all the immoral and disgraceful traits of flawed human beings, and thus should hardly be considered the object of veneration. I totally messed that sentence up, but I think you guys got the point. In one of the earliest known expressions of cultural relativism, Xenophanes remarked that Homer's gods were simply a reflection of Homerian culture. As he proclaimed, the Ethiopians make their gods black and snub-nosed. The Thracians say theirs have blue eyes and red hair. If oxen and horses had hands and could paint, Xenophanes said, oxen would no doubt paint the forms of gods like oxen, and horses would paint them like horses. Likewise, he criticized Pythagoras' doctrine of the transmigration of souls, making fun of the idea that a human soul could inhabit another animal. Xenophanes held some vague concept of a single deity that was in no way like men in shape or in thought, but rather causing all things by the thought of his mind. So it seems like Xenophanes was fairly critical of other thinkers of the time, and didn't really like the interpretation of God, or I guess anything transcendent above humans as being human-like in shape. And I think a lot of people nowadays still struggle with that too. With the world's main religions, or not main, but the majority of the world being identifying as some kind of monotheistic religion, whether that be Christianity or Islam, Judaism, and there are others like Hinduism, which may not be monotheistic but still have anthropomorphic gods. And so it's kind of interesting that Xenophanes being a critic of that idea, however many 2,500 years ago, and it's still something that people are still criticizing to this day, and people who still believe in similar type gods. I'll stop rambling. Like Thales before him, Xenophanes speculated about the underlying principles of natural phenomena. Whereas Thales had conceived the first principle to be water, Xenophanes proposed the rather less glamorous possibility of mud. The speculation was not entirely unreasonable at the time, having the virtue of at least being based on observation. For Xenophanes had noticed the fossil remains of sea creatures embedded in the earth, and guessed that perhaps the world periodically dried up, returning to its original muddy state, trapping and preserving the earth's creatures as it did so before reversal of the process. Xenophanes was also the first known thinker to anticipate Socrates' claim or caution regarding claims of certain knowledge. Philosophical certainties could not be had, according to Xenophanes, for even if we chance to hit upon the truth, there is no way of knowing for certain that things are as we think they are. Nevertheless, this does not make philosophical inquiry useless, for exposing errors in our thinking can at least tell us what is certainly not the case, even if it cannot tell us what certainly is the case. This idea has a modern counterpart in the falsificationist methodology of Karl Popper. I don't know anything about Karl Popper. I'm sure we'll learn about him later in this book, but again, it seems like Xenophanes' kind of overall approach to understanding the world is with a pretty relativistic standpoint. We can't really say for certain that anything is. And so, while we may not be able to do that, it seems like he's saying that we can see what certainly isn't the case. Kind of interesting. There is little coherent or underlying structure to Xenophanes' thought, or at least not that we can tell from fragments that have come down through history. This is perhaps unsurprising for someone who is essentially a refugee of the political turbulence in Asia Minor, and who propagated his thoughts and speculations mostly in the form of oral poems and stories. Nonetheless, Xenophanes clearly had enough influence to be remembered and mentioned by those that followed him. Quite probably, it is his criticism of the Homeric gods, still revered throughout the Hellenistic world during and long after Xenophanes' time, that attracted a great deal of attention to him. So, it seems like Xenophanes was pretty okay with having unpopular opinions. The gods, like this says right here, they were widely accepted and revered throughout the world that he was a part of. And so he wasn't really afraid to criticize things that other people held dear. I think that's important. Obviously there's a method to go about doing that. Especially, in the modern age, you can't tell someone that, they're stupid for believing a certain thing. there's definitely, a method to criticism. But I think, having the willingness and courage to challenge something that's widely accepted, if you believe it's wrong, is really important. So maybe we could learn something there from Xenophanes. Anyway, thank you all for joining me tonight for Xenophanes of Colophon. And I look forward to reading about the next philosopher with you shortly. Thanks.